Hi, my name is Mark Pillar. In this video I would like to demonstrate one of the new features we added in WebORB for Java version 4.3, which is integration with the Robotlegs framework. To demonstrate the feature, I'm going to start with a Java class, which we will use to generate the code for. This is a very basic Java class called data binding, with really just a single method exposed as a service. The method name is getCustomers. As you can see right here, all this method does is a database query which fetches data from a particular table and returns a Java result set. This class is compiled and is actually included into the WebORB distribution, and I do have an instance of WebORB running on my computer, as you can see right here, and I will switch to the WebORB Management Console. In the Management Console, if I switch to the Services tab, I can see a list of all the deployed services, including the one that I just demonstrated, under webinf lib. When you download and install WebORB, you will actually see exactly the same setup as you see here on the screen. Inside of WebORB examples.jar, I will navigate to WebORB examples and then will locate my data binding class, as you can see right here. When I expand the node, it will show a list of all the methods available on that particular service, and the one we're interested in is getCustomers. To make sure that this method is working, I'm going to select the method first, and the console switches to the test drive mode. And here I can just invoke the method by clicking the invoke button, and I can see the result of this invocation right here. So now let me demonstrate the integration with actual Robotlegs framework. When I select the actual service, the console switches to the code generator view, and one of the code generators included into the product distribution, as you can see right here, is Robotlegs. When I click this radio button, the code is automatically generated to include all the required classes for the Robotlegs framework, and all of these classes provide the infrastructure for doing invocations of all the methods available in the specific service using the Robotlegs framework. Specifically, there is a controller, and there are commands for invoking all the methods. There are events, so essentially everything that you would need in order to handle invocation of remote services as it is required by the Robotlegs framework. Also, if I click the Generate Project Files checkbox, WebORB automatically generates all the required Flash Builder project files. I can download this code simply by clicking the Download Code button, as I do right here. Here's my zip. So I will switch to the Flash Builder interface and open my project by importing it as an existing project. And I can see it right here. So when I click Open, notice that the name of the project is exactly the same as the name of the service for which this project was generated. I'm going to click Finish. We'll select the default SDK. So now my project is imported. I also would like to note that the actual Robotlegs framework is included into the project automatically, as well as all the other parameters that you would need to build a client-server project in Flash Builder. Specifically, if I open up the properties, you will see that Flex Compiler has the appropriate -services argument with a path to the file that contains all the channels, endpoints, and destinations. The Flex build path is configured with all the libraries, and the Flex server is automatically configured to point to my WebORB installation. Now let me run this project as is without making any changes. So the default UI is fairly simple. All it is a button that does the method invocation and renders the result. So here it is. The result is rendered as just the object output. So what I'm going to do is to modify the UI just to include a data grid which will render all the results from that particular remote service in the data grid. I'm going to switch back to Flash Builder. As you can see right here, the package structure in the ActionScript code follows exactly the package structure of the server-side service. And here we have a custom view, data binding view, which contains nothing but a button and a text, which contains a printout of the entire object structure. I'm going to change this to VBox, and instead of this label, or perhaps in addition to this label, I will introduce a data grid. And the ID I will assign to this data grid, we'll call it Customers Grid. In In addition to this view, we need to modify the mediator. Which is currently responsible for rendering the result in that particular label. So instead of updating the label, what we're going to do is to reference the customers grid and modify the data provider for that grid to be an array collection of the actual result that we get back. And that result is contained inside of the model. We'll cast it as an array because the result set coming from the server is serialized as an array. So at this point, if I rerun this particular application and click the button, and here we get the result in the data grid, and everything is done through the Robotlegs framework. You can download the product, check it out, and you will see exactly the same behavior if you follow this particular example. If you are familiar with Robotlegs, you'll recognize many of the parts and the classes included in the code generation. To further demonstrate this functionality, I'm going to show you another Java class, and in this case it is the class is called Human Service. And this class, what it does, just returns a data structure called human. So to give you an idea of this data structure, here's a human class, and it contains some public fields and public getters and setters, and it deals with fairly complex data structure. And as you can see, there is a generic hash table, there are references to other classes, and all of these classes are contained in different packages. And what I would like to demonstrate is that even for services that deal with fairly complex data types, the code generation includes ActionScript value objects in addition to all the classes required by Robotlegs into the code generation. So as you can see, human has reference to net worth, and net worth contains a generic list of the stock classes, and the stock has a string, integer, and date, and there is also an enumeration called social status. So it's a fairly complex data structure which would be fairly representative of a typical application that you have out there that perhaps you're working on. So in this case, if I switch back to the management console and select this human service, so here it is, my human service, and switch back to Robotlegs, you will see that for all the Java complex types, there is a corresponding complex type generated in ActionScript. So you can see this is the human service, and for the enumeration, since ActionScript doesn't have enumerations, there is something that would be fairly similar, and from serialization perspective, WebORB takes care of mapping these types between the client and the server. And here is our net worth, which contains an array of stocks, and here's a stock, and so on. So which is a tremendous help, because if you are building a client-server application using Flex, this gives you a fantastic ability to create all the corresponding ActionScript classes literally with a click of a button. And there's also kind of a funny way to figure out how much money you actually saved or time you saved by doing so. There is a Calculate ROI button. If you click that, it will tell you that altogether this particular code generation contains a little bit over 1,200 lines of code, and by playing with these numbers you can figure out how much money you actually saved by using this code generator. So here, if I download this code, as you can see, it ended up being in WebORB code Gen 2. If I import this particular project into Flash Builder, it's called Human Service. I'm going to run this human service. I'm going to invoke generate human. As you can see, this is the data structure we got back, and all of the specific types, which were complex types on the Java side, are now corresponding ActionScript types. So as you can see, all of these types are right here. Everything that I just demonstrated to you is available in WebORB for Java download. Make sure it is version 4.3. And also I need to mention that all of the functionality that I described is available for free in the form of WebORB Community Edition, and which is designed for small to medium-sized businesses. And if you're doing a larger scale deployment, you can always contact us for the Enterprise Edition. Thanks for watching. Happy coding.